Hello everybody, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the world you happen to be. Caravel here, and we're back with another video. It was a request somebody had made to my How to Not Lose in FTL, and it was a, could you make a tier list for augments? And originally I was just like, no, I don't really wasn't really thinking about it, wasn't doing it, and then immediately just wrote like an 8-page script, and now we're going to go do that. Now, to start with, a lot of the information that I'm using, just for making sure that I had like all my I's crossed and my T's dotted, was checked through the FTL wiki. So I'm going to assume that a lot of the credit to like that particular sourced information should go to Mike Hopley, Outrider, and then Zenik, who I know is doing some reverse engineering behind the scenes, like how FTL does things that FTL does. So some of the like more specific numbers might have been provided by them. And if not, I don't know. I guess they get credit anyways. Good job. Also, before we get started, do not get bogged down with the actual rankings. The rankings do not matter, okay? Tier lists are some of my most watched videos, and a lot of people just search FTL and tier lists apparently, but everything in FTL is kind of situational. And for example, if you only have a breach 2 and you're a boarding ship, Zoltan Shield bypass would be of higher importance in that scenario than say like a pre-igniter. Okay, now, before we actually get started, so this is the FTL tier list, this is what was provided, and I don't like it. I don't like how this is set up, because it's always buy if you're able to, and there's nothing that you always buy, even if able to. A really good find's not necessary to buy, good for certain situations, and just not useless. Outright bad hurts your run. So we're gonna keep this as always get. That's okay. We can do that. That's cool. Next, for A tier is going to be universally good. So these are just augments that really don't have a downside or don't require like a bunch of niche situations or specific system setups, and are just, like I said, kind of universally good, universally have value. For the B tier, good old B tier, we're gonna have the system or lack thereof dependent, with all the ease possible. All right, so here we're going to put things that are like, wow, if you have these systems, it's a really good thing to get, and if we don't have these systems, then they might be a really good thing to get. C tier is going to be hold on if free. Hold on if free / situational. So these are augments that pretty much you would never buy, because there's always just going to be alternatives, whether it's micro or there's something better to spend your money on. But there are definitely going to be certain times where it's like, might as well keep it. Like it is going to be a benefit. And then D, D here is just sell or avoid. There we go. That is how we're going to do this. Now, my list I did in alphabetical order, so we're going to be doing this in alphabetical order. And that means first up, if we can find it, advanced FTL Navigation. We're just putting it here for now. We'll get to the actual rankings later. So this has a cost of 50, and what it does is it allows a player to jump to a previously visited beacon. So at best, it has like 2 uses. I mean, 3 if you count that has like a blue option. But its best uses are if there's an exit beacon with several jumps after it that are not like accessible, you can jump to the exit through to the other beacons, and then if those other visited beacons are overtaken by the fleet pursuit, you are able to jump back to the exit and only do a singular dive versus having to do multiple dives. So that's a benefit. The other benefit comes into like the last stand, where beacons are kind of overtaken at random and start becoming dives. So kind of in the similar vein, it provides a way after you, like while engaging the flagship, to maybe jump to a safe beacon and then hit a different beacon. It could be a repair, maybe you go back to a store to get fixes, possibly get another fight, and then you would be able to safely jump back and re-engage the flagship. And this helps with score, but really these are far too limited in terms of actual situations to really hold on to this augment for any length of time, that selling it for 25 scrap is going to be generally more beneficial. And there you go, Badger. I actually mentioned some score run considerations, because it would, in like the last sector, maybe get you a couple more points. So, you know, hope you're happy. But that's going to put it into D. Next up, Automated Reloader, aka Neozar's baby. He's a big fan of the 40 scrap augment. It is a 10% bump in a weapon fire rate. This actually does impact artillery systems and is still applied if either of those systems are hacked. So artillery gets hacked, weapons are hacked, you're still getting that benefit. It actually really tends to shine. I'm going to go ahead and forget to like put it up on the list. Going to go right here. Again, it's temporary. It tends to shine with really fast weapon setups, like your flak ones, your heavy ones, even burst ones. And what it does is it enables a player to actually get off like 2 volleys with a level 3 evasion hack. So you can send those shots in, and just before they crack the shields, do a level 3 evasion hack, and that's going to last for 10 seconds. So those really quick firing loadouts are able to land multiple times, well, twice, which is pretty powerful. This is actually also better for like the Vulcan than a pre-igniter. It'll speed up the Vulcan time to get going faster than just the first shot of the pre-igniter being charged. Another nice thing about the sped up volleys is it can potentially enable you landing 2 volleys before an enemy is able to cloak. Again, that requires faster weapons. But if in lieu of like hacking and cloaking, it could be a 40 scrap investment to give yourself a better chance on taking out those really annoying auto scouts, slug ships, rock ships. It is also stackable. To the extent that additional ones have value, I think that's kind of hard to say with certain weapon loadouts. Like ion weapon loadouts can benefit a lot because it could potentially help with ion stacking, but it could really just be fractions of seconds that inherently wouldn't matter too much, again on a loadout by loadout basis. But generally I'm going to say that it's good. And while I couldn't go through like every single weapon setup and be like it's good for here, it's bad for here specifically, or you're really going to notice something impactful, it is generally just universally good. So congratulations, you get to go into the A tier. Next up, backup DNA bank. What kind of order are these things in? They're just all over the place. Apparently here, right after Lifeform Scanner. All right, backup DNA bank. So backup DNA bank costs 40 scrap. And what it does is dead crew remain in the clone bay queue, despite the system being fully damaged, so like it's not functional, or the system being turned off. So first off, this augment just has no impact whatsoever on medbay, or if you don't have either of those, or if you don't have a clone bay, which is going to make up about 2/3 of ships, right? Clone bay was added with Advanced Edition, and I definitely don't promote swapping over to clone bay for most situations. The only the caveat exception would be boarding. Some boarding ships, it can be helpful to make that swap, but I still generally don't do it. In most situations, like normal boarding situations, I think good decisions by the player pretty much eliminate risks of like you sending your crew over, them dying, and then like your clone bay getting sniped or sniped in some way or the other. but still, a level 2 clone bay, that upgrade costs 35 scrap. This augment costs 40 bucks. So I could see in a certain situation that you would go ahead and buy this to give you that little bit of security over, say, the upgrade. Though I think if you're in that position where you're concerned about getting the upgrade, then you're just going to go ahead and upgrade your clone bay anyways, instead of waiting for this augment to show up. But it does, as I said, it provides you some safety, even against like a pulsar or some ion to the system. And it's potentially useful, but like I said, it's pretty limited. It requires a certain system. Really, you're only going to be losing crew in a lot of boarding situations. So I'm going to have it actually like in C tier here. So like, hey, if you have Clone Bay and you're boarding and you get it for free, like, might as well hold on to it. Unless, like I said, a lot of these situations where I'm talking about holding on to it, like, please get weapons, please get hacking, those things are going to be like more universally better for you. But it definitely could provide some potential benefits if you hold on to it in those like finite circumstances. Again, it's kind of tough to be like, this is the amount of times you're going to have Clone Bay and boarding, and it's going to be relevant. Next up, everybody's favorite augment, battery charger. Okay, so battery charger costs 40 scrap, and what it does is it reduces the cooldown time of activating your battery to 10 seconds instead of its normal 20. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never bought this. At least nothing that I would be willing to admit publicly. I could see it being nice on, like, if you got it for free on the Zoltan C, because that's a thing that really relies on battery for power. And like that would be kind of a cool benefit, but I wouldn't want like spend 40 scrap on it, because you could just spend 30 scrap on the reactor instead, if that's where you kind of feel in that situation. And honestly, I think just better micromanagement of your crew. Like, a lot of players just don't forget about the pilot being a power. Like, they're so worried about dodge and evasion, but if it's just like, well, if you just moved your pilot to your weapons, then the relevant systems would all be powered that you need to be powered so that you can just like win this fight. So because of that kind of consideration, like I said, it's almost never really useful. I would rather just have like actual reactor than have my temporary reactor show up more frequently, and I'm a pretty heavy user of the battery. So this goes behind advanced FTL navigation. Next up, Crystal Vengeance. All right, Crystal Vengeance goes here to start with. Crystal Vengeance has a cost of 80 scrap. It's not actually 80 scrap because you can't buy it, but it does sell for 40 scrap. And what it does is it kills your crew. You know what I'm talking about. So what it actually does is there's a 15% chance that when your ship takes damage, like hull damage, a crystal projectile is fired that penetrates one shield bubble and deals 1 damage. This projectile is just like any other crystal projectile from, like a crystal heavy. So that means that it's still impacted by enemy evasion, so they could just dodge it. They could also shoot it down with any of the defense drones. DD1, DD2, both can target it. It just hits a random one of their rooms at best. And again, it only fires after you take damage, and again, only 15% of the time. This is sell it. This is immediately jump to a store and sell it. As I said, the only way you get this is it starts on all the crystal ships, or you can get it as a reward for the Crystal Cruiser event. Unlock quest, but again, you're just like, if you're in Crystal B early sector or even Crystal A early sector, first jump, store, sell it. Just sell it. It's 40 scrap, which is basically 2 times the amount of scrap reward you would get from the high scrap rewards in Sector 1. That's your shield buffer and well on your way to getting your second shield online. And that's going to keep you so much safer and drastically increases like your survival chances. I shouldn't say drastically. It's not like those 2 ships are like a problem per se, but particularly like the Crystal B, you really don't have a response to auto ships. No, Crystal Vengeance is not a response to auto ships. Like, just do the math. If an auto ship has 8 health and it only procs 15% of the time, you want to do that math to figure out how much damage you want to have. You're going to die before they do, like every time, all the time. So yeah, just sell it, protect your ship, get better shields online. Crystal Vengeance, actually worse than the battery charger. Next up, speaking of crystals, the damage Stasis Pod. So this is only a quest reward. It sells for 15 scrap. Doesn't really have a value to it. As I said, it's an augment that is part of the Crystal Cruiser Unlock quest, which requires first acquiring it in an event, which I think if you have rockhold plating, you can just select it. Elsewise, it's like a 1 in 3 chance that you get the option from the event. And then you have to go find a Zoltan research facility, which may not spawn at all. And then you have to go to the rock homeworlds, which again may not even be possible, isn't guaranteed to happen. And then you will be shown a beacon. I kind of skipped the part. If you go to the Zoltan research facility, you do get a crystal crew named Ruin. So there is that potential reward. Again, rolling the one event into getting it to get a crystal crew, which is itself is still pretty unlikely. And then yes, so then you need the rock homeworlds to exist, and then you need to get there, and then you'd be able to get to the beacon, which sometimes sectors spawn and you can't get to event beacons because FTL. And then when you get to that beacon, if you have a crystal crew member, which again the Zoltan research facility would have provided with said augment, you would be able to go to the crystal homeworld and try to complete the crystal homeworld quest. However, the same event, which lets you take the crystal crew, also has an option where you just get scrap and a free item or free weapon. I should double check that. I think it's just a free weapon. So yeah, you can get a free weapon and a bunch of scrap, or you get an augment that only sells 15 unless you get to a very specific event and you get a crystal crew member, which probably isn't worth really getting a weapon, and then maybe possibly leads to the homeworld and unlock quest. There's 2 other ways to unlock your ship that doesn't involve directly following the quest line, like just have Rock C unlocked, and that starts with the crystal crew, so you really only have to go to the homeworld and try and find the beacon. That's statistically far more likely to be successful. Or I think if you beat the game with all A and B layouts, then the crystal ships unlock anyways. So I mean, if you're a completionist, want to complete the quest, go get damaged Stasis Pod. Other than that, please, 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 please always take the weapon. You're always going to take the weapon in scrap, so it's actually technically worse than Crystal Vengeance. They're about the same. I mean, I guess in one, yeah, they're about the same. Again, where they're actually ranked isn't important. It's just like, this is why I would like this augment. This is why I don't like this augment. And here's how you should use it. And here's how you should try to understand its value. Next up, distraction buoys. They cost 55 scrap. You can find them in stores. So at the start of a sector, the Rebel fleet pursuit is effectively delayed 1 jump. Now, if you're in a nebula, that is taken into account. So if you're like in an Uncharted nebula, or like if you're in an Uncharted nebula, then they only lose, what is it, like 68% of a jump or whatever. If you're in a non-purple sector and you start off in a nebula, then it just does only a half jump delay. But effectively, it gives you a chance at an extra jump every single sector, which definitely has value, right? That's a chance to get more money. But I'm going to say that generally speaking, the 27 scrap in hand is just going to be better. Like, you wouldn't buy it in the early sector because 55 scrap is such an absurd amount of money in the early sectors. We're talking, you're only getting 130 scrap on average in your sector 1s, your sector 2s. You can't, and it doesn't really get up to like 200 scrap isn't expected until like sector 4. So you're going to spend 25, you're going to spend a quarter of the scrap you get in a sector for something that has no impact on fights. I don't think so. But if you get it for free, it doesn't, and you know, maybe sector, it is going to give you, like I said, chances of free fights. If stores don't inherently have something, like this is like mid-game, because like in the early sector, you totally have stuff you want to spend money on. You have the ship upgrades to try and equalize, you know, your 2 shields, your weapon buffers, and then like trying to get a weapon online or find hacking. Like those are such priorities in the early game. But maybe like Sector 4, you get it for free, and you're like, all right, so 5, 6, and 7, I'll get extra jumps. It doesn't do anything in Sector 8, and then you just need to, like I said, you sell it in Sector 7 because then it's already done its work. It can't do anything more. Where did I put distraction buoys? I guess I can put it up here. The reason I can put up distraction buoys up in the... I didn't grab it from the list. Distraction buoys. I put it here. Pull it below back DNA bank. Again, it does have value. Getting 3 extra jumps and then like selling it if you get it for free, like that's pretty solid, because again, it should be like late beacon jumps. Also, if you're into score running, how'd that get in there? So if there's score running, I guess I could talk about it. It is extra jumps, so extra scrap is better for score, and so in destroying ships is also better for score. Next up, Defense Scrambler. So Defense Scrambler costs 80. What it does is that defensive drones, which is DD, the defensive drone 1, defensive drone 2, as well as the anti-drone drone, no longer target and they no longer fire. So any of your like boarding bots, hacking, and offensive drones are essentially safe from being targeted by the enemy drones. It's a starting augment in the NGC, but basically you're going to sell it as soon as possible. There is a strategy in FTL called the hacking bypass, which is where you can depower your hacking drone as it's on its way, like just completely depower it when you hear the defensive drones try and shoot it. And so your drone stops midair. I know it's not air, it's space, but you get where I'm at. And the projectile just was trying to hit where the drone was going. It'll miss, and then the drone latches onto where you wanted it to hit. So hacking doesn't really need it. Also, with the 1.96 update, offensive drones don't inherently really need it either, because they've made it so that if your drones are depowered and they are hit by an ion, they are not destroyed. They used to be like, I think it was like there was a certain percentage of chance, I don't know if it was like a coin flip or whatever, that a drone hit by an ion, well, still, if it's hit by an ion and it's powered, there's a chance that it blows up. But if it's depowered, 0 chance it blows up. I think they made this change because there was a concern about like an enemy drone like coming in and like it's just kind of sitting on your weapons, like you just like somehow just got in front of your like charge ion and you're just sitting there constantly ion charging it, and it doesn't like blow up, and now it's just gonna like or maybe for the enemy ships. I think that was the argument. I'm probably mixing it up now. I don't edit my videos, I just kind of do these one takes. But that was, I think, was essentially the concern, was that certain things could just kind of get locked on infinitely or for long periods of time. So they altered it. So what I'm coming to, in conclusion, you have alternatives via micro to get around enemy defense drones and with either your hacking or your drones. DD drones will still shoot down missiles. I mean, I guess it's there. So if you somehow, some way are kind of really stuck on, like if you like Rock A, you get that as a drop early on, then cool, that has potential value to hold on to it. If you're doing no pause, then I could also maybe see holding on to it if you have a lot of offensive drones, like that's kind of what you're doing. But most of the time, like 99% of the time, you're just selling it and it's gonna go away. Did I put that Defensive Scrambler? Yeah, it's in the D tier, just behind Battery Charger. I guess again, you could argue that it could be ahead of it too. Drone. Where is Scrambler? Oh, right there, slot 1. Good call. Whatever. Next up, Drone reactive booster. All right, we're gonna go ahead and find that immediately. Boom, drone reactor booster. It sells for 25 scrap. And what this does is it increases your crew drones, so these are your repair bots, your anti-personnel bots, from basically half the speed of a human or your average crew to like 62.5% of the speed of a human. That's the boost. That's what it does. The NGB starts with it, and you can also get it from the NG Virus event as a reward. Sell it. You're going to sell it. I can't come up with like yeah, maybe there's this one time where like your drone barely gets to wherever it needed to in time to get the repair, to save a run. Like a billion other things probably had to happen before it got to that point. No. So it's going to go in this tier, but it doesn't kill your own crew. So, you know, GG's. Again, this one's really down there because like you still might do the Crystal Quest and I guess get this. Maybe. I don't know. Again, rankings don't inherently matter. Next up, Drone Recovery Arm. Drone Recovery Arm. Boop. Drone Recovery Arm costs 50. Nothing starts with it. During a jump, your deployed orbital drones, your orbiting drones. So these are your defense drones. These are your offense drones, your beam drones, your combat drones, your anti-drone drones. Essentially all the remaining ones of those after a fight are returned to your ship, and the drone parts that were used for them are added to your stockpile. But so if the drones blew up, if they're boarding drones of any kind, like a boarding bot, an ion intruder, or it's a hack drone, you don't get that back, okay? Now there is a bit of an exploit, and it involves using the hull repair drone. So the hull repair drone is an orbital drone. You apply it to your ship, and it heals 3 to 5 hull. It restores 3 to 5 hull on your ship. So what you are able to do is power it on, let it heal your ship 2 times, hit pause or depower it, and then you jump away. Because you don't get to the 3rd heal, it never triggers its self-destruct. And so essentially you get 2 free heals, you'll jump, and you get the drone part back. I think this augment's actually pretty solid. Of course, considering you're using orbital drones, drone parts themselves are 8 scrap, so you're looking at like, does it provide you with like 7 drone parts? Then it's going to have value. Of course, you could always just sell it later to get part of that value back. I think there's a little bit of a misconception. We're going to try and get hacking every run. Like, hacking is a system you want every single run with every single ship layout. And so there's this potential fear of like, you know, your hacking is going to be competing with your drones. I think for like defensive drones, it's less of an issue. Like if you need a defensive drone to deal with an enemy's missiles, generally I think their offense is going to be weak enough that you may not be able to hack. Not always. So that you can just like kind of pick and choose, or like where your hacking is going to be sufficient enough that you're able to just like crush their weapons and not deploy the drone. So they don't compete nearly as much as I think some people believe they do. So you may not need it in that scenario, like if you have a DD1 as your missile defense, and because you don't have like cloaking at that time. So there's that element to consider. But if you have multiple offensive drones, it's basically required. Like I said, your stores I think are like 2 to 4 drone parts. You know, if you can get 2 or 3 from like a fight, like that's pretty high up there in terms of overall rewards. So it's kind of like a requirement for that. But drones are not the optional system most people go for. Hacking's 1, cloaking is 2, mind control tends to be 3. There's definitely some spots for it. So I'm going to say if you have a system, then drone recovery arm, if you have drone control, it's pretty solid. Like I said, it particularly if you get it for free and that setup, you can, as I said, save yourself a lot of drone parts, save some scrap, and it gives you some options like where you can go more heavily into like offensive drones in some scenarios. You're like, well, that's cool because I mean, if they get shot down, you know, that's unfortunate, but it at least gives you like potentially better options. So yeah, you get to go in there. Good for you. Emergency respirators, which is right here. Emergency respirators, they cost 50 scrap. And what it is that crew takes half the normal damage they would without oxygen. Well, I guess oxygen technically at 5% is when the rooms become striped, and that's when they start taking damage, unless you're Alanius. And this augment works on your ship and the enemy ship. So for boarding purposes, sending 2 crew into an auto ship, 2 crew that have 100 health, 100 HP, they can deal 5 system damage before they die. So it means that it's actually pretty safe to be able to send like 2 boarders in the early sector to, like I said, 5 damage to break weapons online. Sector 1 and Sector 2, you're really only dealing with like 3 power in weapon setups unless you run into some elites. So then you have like the time of 2 repairs to go ahead and fix things. Oops, I have Discord open. I don't get messages. So there's like that benefit. It is a starting augment on the Federation C, which is oddly as a boarding ship, very well equipped to deal with auto ships. Now, it also technically provides a benefit for boarding against Lanius, but like the O2 is still going to be hurting you, and you're still going to be trying to fight the Lanius. Like, you would have to be pretty knowledgeable. I'd almost think it would have to be only on like a 4-person teleporter to even really consider like trying to kill maybe 2 Lanius before your crew die. And then when the fight is over, if you're not in hazard, you'd be able to, your teleporter immediately comes back off cooldown, and so you'd be able to bring him back safely. That's pretty risky. As I said, it starts with the Federation C. A lot of people really like to hold on to it because the value of being able to more safely kill auto ships. I'm a believer, however, that you should just sell it at a store and try and upgrade your shields if that is an option early on. If you're able to just upgrade your shields manually, then sure, might as well hold on to it in that scenario. But the Federation C is a ship where you're going to be tanking a lot of damage, and you just want to avoid the death spirals as much as possible, which means rushing shields as much as possible. And I believe, I couldn't tell you statistically, that selling the emergency respirators to try and get a shield buffer or shields 2 is a better use for it. Where did I put emergency respirators? See, very situational. Yeah, I still think it's like really good for, like, again, it's kind of like, if you have a boarding ship, okay, like, I mean, you wouldn't inherently really have much value on your own ship, so it's kind of limited. But yeah, it goes in here. Like, if boarding against auto ships, it is a benefit. It's there. Most other scenarios, just sell it almost immediately. Next up, NG. Why did I write NG? It's just Medbot Dispersal. Oh no, it does say. Okay, so NG Medbot Dispersal. Okay, so this costs 60 scrap. I'm pretty sure you can't buy it. It just starts on the NGA, or it could be a reward from the Rebel attacking NG event. But I'm ahead of myself. We got to talk about what it does. So, if you have this augment and a med bay, doesn't do anything with a clone bay, and that you have a med bay, if you power the med bay, your crew are healed like 1.6 HP per second. Okay? What it essentially does is it does give you a little bit of nice utility early on. Like the NGA doesn't really have like the best venting, and you're generally going to have your like 2 NGs on the ship, and they're not very good at dealing with boarders either. So it does provide you with a little bit of buffer, maybe dealing with fires, maybe dealing with boarders, you may be dealing with low O2 situations, and that you don't have to try and manage to get your crew into the med bay. You can kind of just try and save stuff up. I don't think it enables like an NG to win a fight against anything at their halved health. But it lets you, like I said, it does let them hold their own. There is another potential interesting situation, which is you're very low on crew, and like you have 3-4 crew. You're less than, I would say it's worth considering if you're at less than 5 crew, none of them are NG, that if you get the rebel attacking NG event, and you know during the reward screen, the NGs are like, please give us stuff, and 40 scrap, giving them 40 scrap. You never ever have to do this. Giving them 40 scrap gets you this as a reward. It could be worth considering, right? Because like I said, it could be a little bit beneficial, helps with fires, O2, lack of O2 situations, maybe dealing with borders. And if you're really lighting crew, like there's just no you're not sure if there's going to be any at the store, it's a spot where you pick it up. I did that once, so it's there. Other than that, though, you're just not going to pick it up at those events ever, and you're going to sell it to the store immediately to get like the 30 scrap and try and rush shields or better offense. So where did I put this? Technically, okay, yeah, it's just below advanced FTL navigation. I think that's fair. Like I said, there's a little bit of use. It has some functionality, but generally you're going to avoid it. Every ship that isn't the NGA, and even then, like, you're probably just going to sell it as soon as possible to get that 30 scrap. Next up is Explosive Replicator. Boop. Explosive Replicator costs 60. Has a 50% chance of missiles not being used when you fire a missile or bomb weapon. If a missile weapon fires multiple missiles, like Pegasus or Swarm missiles, they only use up one missile to actually fire in those circumstances. So there's a 50% chance that you still don't use anything. So you could fire like up to 3 missiles, and technically because it only was run, and then you end up actually not using any missiles at all. So like I said, does what it says, pretty straightforward. It is a potential early pickup for Rock A if there's nothing else available, if there's like no other weapons available, there's not a teleporter that you can really afford to get online. Because, you know, it's essentially 10 missiles, right? Missiles are going to cost you 6 scrap each, and then you can sell it later for 30 scrap. So 5-6 missile value, it kind of pays for itself potentially, but 60 scrap is a lot. The other potential way I could see holding on to it would be if you get a bomb, like you get like a Breach 2 or a Fire Bomb kind of late in the game, and you've been like selling off missiles, and you're like, well, this is kind of like my best crew kill option. I don't think I would buy Explosive Replicator in that scenario. If you go to a store, like I said, you probably could just buy out missiles outright and just make sure you have it focused for that limited use. But if you got it for free, you might want to hold on to it. And like I said, increase the potential of like crew killing the flagship. Other than that, like I said, most ships, who even have missile weapons, you're using like one, kind of like just like snipe their weapons and not deal with it. It kind of maxes out through certain boarding ships, like even Slug B. I really wouldn't try to lean into that to solve problems, but maybe it is worth considering. But that's really about it. Like I said, you could probably just try and find like a medical unit instead of the augment. But I suppose Replicator, we're going to go at kind of towards the end of C here, because like I said, it is an option to potentially buy on the Rock A, but I guess I've never bought it for Slug B. There may be a reason to buy it for Slug B. I've never bought it for Slug B. So as I said, that's very, very, very limited use of it, but enough for consideration. Next up, Fire Suppression. Okay, so Fire Suppression costs 65 scrap, and what it does, and this is totally using like new language that I don't normally use, like putting out fires is less about putting out fires than you're like fighting fires, and they actually have like HP to them. So Fire Suppression attacks all fires on the ship, and the wiki says apparently it's at the rate at which a crystal would be putting out fires. So crystals have an innate debuff when putting out fires, even though the repair speed is normal. So essentially, it's just like having one of those in every room whose only job is to put out fires. Mantis have repair speed. We already talked about the crystals. And Zoltans, even though they don't have debuffs, do only have like 70 HP. So like, it can be pretty sketchy for them to put out fires. They're definitely less than ideal. As a purchase, I could see it as a solid purchase on the Mantis B. If there's like no repair bot, there's no crew, not even like a repair burst, you could go ahead and grab this to try and help with the situations where the Mantis on the Mantis B just can't put out fires, and particularly the O2 in the door rooms. So it could be a run saver there. Again, maybe much like I just said, the NG Medbot, you could have that like really weak crew, like a few Zoltans, and it's like, well, I could hold on to it. I don't need the scrap as much, and it gives me maybe some options of dealing with fire. It's very limited. Selling it to a store to buy something, like again, like you're going to just buy crew with the Mantis B, or buy crew to get repairs as well as those benefits, generally is going to be the way to go. Though it is, fire suppression is definitely best as a reward from the distress station fire. But other than that, pretty, like I said, it's instant sell. It's very, very specific situations. I think I put it just behind backup DNA bank. Oh, check out. I think I forgot to mention that backup DNA bank only costs a little bit more than. Oh no, I did, about the buffer upgrade. It's fine. I don't make mistakes. Cut for edit. Next up, FTL Jammer. Boom. So FTL Jammer costs 30 scrap. Oh no, why are you doing the choose files thing? So as I go up, they're going to show ads. Whatever. Doubles the time it takes for enemy ships to jump away for their FTL's charge. So ships trying to run at the start, like you jump to it and they're like, this ship's trying to run away, it's about 40 seconds. That's how long it takes for them to go away. So that jammer is going to increase it to 80 seconds. Ships jumping out of away after like taking a certain amount of damage outside of the prize fighter event, because that's almost like instantaneous that their FTL just like charges and they jump away, I think is something like 15 seconds. This part I definitely am vague on, because I thought, talking with Mike, that how much time is spent in the fight impacts how fast the FTL charges. So like if you were, I don't know, Glade Beam Pre-Igniter and you just zipped in, like cut their ship in half, but they still have enough hull and it triggers their like flight response, that would take longer than it had there been a protracted fight. You finally got them into the point where they would try to run away, and that charge time is short. So again, that would double it as well. So if you have weak weapons, or maybe if you're like reliant on artillery beams, so hey, 2 Federation ships, Fed A, Fed B, kind of fit that particular category, it could have value. I could see it having value because you don't want enemy ships running away, either to avoid the fleet pursuit doubling or just getting scrap, or potentially both. But generally, if going to a store and selling it for 15 bucks is, you know, going to get me a weapon, then yeah, I'm just going to probably sell it immediately. And almost like every ship, I'd probably just sell it immediately. And definitely it's not purchasable. There would be, I would just like, well, might as well get engines so I can just jump away before they do. Like just invest in my ship versus spend out of pocket to try and get that online for that. Yeah, see, this is where like these kind of situational things are. Like, it kind of has a use. If your weapons are weak, that I could see holding on to it. Since it only sells for 15 scrap, it isn't going to be like a major difference in certain scenarios. Where like, oh man, like I go to the store with this and have 15 bucks. But, you know, I guess you can just situate there. Again, it's the rationale, not the actual placement. Next, FTL Recharge Booster. So the FTL Recharge Booster costs 50 bucks. A single one of these online, because it is actually stackable, multiplies your FTL charge time by 80%. So that's what one of them does. I think the second one is like 67%. So what is your FTL charge time? Your FTL charge time varies amongst a myriad of things. It is based first on your like what level engines you have. So the more engines you have powered, the faster your FTL charges. 2, is it manned? That adds a bonus to your FTL charge rate. Does that person have training? Level 1, level 2 training also increases how fast the FTL charges. And then this would just, like I said, take whatever that number is and then multiply it by 80%. So you'd be able to jump away faster. It's important to note that pilots do not have any impact at all on FTL charge rate, other than you need to have a pilot for your FTL to be charging. Same thing also goes with like increasing your piloting, doesn't have any impact at all. So I can't see any reason you would ever buy this. I can't see any reason you would really buy this, because you could just upgrade your engines. Like a single upgraded engine isn't the same percentage wise. I kind of checked the numbers. There's like with level 2 engines, there's like a 3.5 second difference, but then you could just buy the next layer of engines for like 25, so half the value. It's permanently already attached to your ship, and then it's, you know, like I could see like you get it for free, you get stuck in a dive, and now like it just gets you out in time to not eat an ASB, but you're sell it fast. So that is, I put it just above Defense Scrambler. I'll put it below Defense Scrambler, because again, there's certain offensive drones or missile ships that could have more of a use. And here's the thing, as I'm just kind of going over all of these things, like that's like the thought process I have while playing FTL. Like I have an 8-page script, and I'm already still adding stuff to it because there were just things that I hadn't really considered in the moments where I was writing it. So there's always a lot of things to consider when making any decision in FTL, and the more things you consider, like reasonably consider, the better you're going to be. Next up, Hacking Stun. Hacking Stun. So this costs $60 and, or scrap. I think they use scrap. What it does is it stuns all crew, players, and enemies alike, as well as any drones while hack is activated. So anything that's within the hacked room, you activate hacking. The duration of that, everything in the room is stunned. There's no repairs happening. They're not punching down doors. Nothing is occurring. There are some incredibly niche circumstances that this thing has a value to it, okay? Where it might be able to prevent a crew from getting a repair or enable a crew kill. I can remember one time where I had it and it actually did enable a crew kill, just like parts of a second, but hey, it got it here. The real problem is it is also a counter to a lot of different strategies that players use a good deal. One is the Masala maneuver. So Masala maneuver is where you hack the weapons and mind control the crew in the weapons, and if the situation is correct, which is like there's 3 enemies on the ship, that crew will be able to punch down that system, and you need your hacking to slow down the fire rate of the weapons. But if you were hacking, the MC'd crew would then get stunned and wouldn't be punching down the weapons. So as hacking stun throws that strategy out of the window. Like I said, you can use it on a lot of ships, but it is most well known for the Slug C because it starts with hacking and mind control. The other thing is, like, if you're boarding, a lot of boarding scenarios is boarding into enemy weapons, hacking enemy weapons, and then using hacking and cloaking offset each other's cooldowns to like take out the enemy crew or take out their weapons. So if you have hackings done, then you're effectively stunning your crew so they're not punching down during a certain time period. The augment is, again, particularly weak when you know it already gives you door control, which is going to slow down repairs because it can't send more crew to help do fixes. It actually already has repair speed. That doesn't impact fires like I used to think it did. It doesn't. But normal repairs are halved. So hacking on its own already is really detrimental to repairs happening. You could argue if you have a like non-mind control, non-boarding setup, cloaking, hacking, like I don't know, you have drone control, I guess, because you wouldn't have boarding. Yeah, so you would have to have drone control as your last system or artillery. Like those would be your 2 options. Then hacking stun wouldn't be a detriment. Like then it wouldn't be bad for your ship. But other than that, like I said, it doesn't really provide a use. You definitely wouldn't buy it. In a lot of cases, you need to sell it very quickly so it doesn't screw up a lot of your strategies. So we're going to put it just, I mean, I guess we're going to put it here. Like I said, I could see where it technically has more use in those like really key specific setups, but at the same time, it actively like ruins a lot of other really key important setups. So you get to go there. Congratulations. Next up, Lifeform Scanner. Oh, it's so much easier now that there's less of them. Lifeform Scanner. So Lifeform Scanner costs 40 scrap, and it lets you see into enemy ships. It's identical to the ability that slugs have, so that regardless if you have sensors or you're in a nebula, the slugs can show you where the enemy crew are and kind of like see what crew type they are. That's what Lifeform Scanner does. It costs 40 bucks to do that. So if you already have a slug, you already have sensors, you really don't need it. And if you're arguing is like, well, again, in nebulas, it's really helpful. A lot of nebulas are auto ships, so it doesn't matter. Or if you're in slug sectors, then it's a lot of slugs and they can't be mind controlled anyways. I mean, sure, there's going to be some pirate situations, but if you're not, like, I mean, if you're not really trying to get mind control through in any ways, it's not really going to do much of anything. I wouldn't be able to invest in it. And again, if you don't have sensors, like, you're not buying mind control, right? Like, you can't really justify that, like, in the hopes that you'll get, you know, scanners, Lifeform scanners to get you there. So I'm going to put this below, where am I going to put this? Just above Hacking Stun, I guess. Sure. Like, for most of the time, it honestly isn't doing anything. You would never buy it. And there it is. That's where it goes. The moment we've all been waiting for. Long-range scanners. Long-range scanners cost 30 scrap. What it does is it shows ships or hazards being present at all adjacent beacons to your ship. If you buy this augment, it will actually retroactively show you all the adjacent beacons. So like if you make a beeline to a store, it's the long range scanners somehow is like, oh, that beacon you didn't go to 3 jumps back, that was actually like a ship fight. Don't know how that works. Also, it's important to note, if you sell long range scanners, all that information goes away. So before you sell long range scanners, do make a note at the information provided, so you know where some potential ship fights are, if that's a thing of note. And there are also a ton of blue options associated with long range scanners. There's a lot. It's kind of an absurd amount. However, it does not actively improve your ship during a fight, and proper sector scouting overwrites the augment's ability to find fights. Okay? I haven't done a video on proper sector scouting, but if you watch, my runs, you will note that I generally have a plan on where I'm going through in a sector, and long-range scanners does not alter that path much of the time. Like, it just doesn't, and I don't want to spend 30 scrap, particularly early on, for something that's not going to directly improve my ship. Its real value, though, is if your ships don't have shields, because this is a starting augment on all the stealth ships, and again, you could buy it in store. If you don't have shields on your ship, which none of the stealth ships start with, got it, you can't really sell it unless it's to get shields online, and then you should totally sell it to get shields online. But you need to avoid hazards, because asteroid fields are way too spooky. Solar flares without a shield, you're looking at 5 to 6 fires and up to 2 hull damage. You don't have like a bunch of buffers in your ship that's going to be okay. Like, a lot of times it's very much not going to be okay. They could blow up your doors, you can't vent, and things can get really out of hand. So in that regard, long-range scanners' main value is its ability to avoid hazards. But really, investing in your ship, get weapons online or hold out to make sure you can afford hacking or, like I said, other weapons. Unless, you know, you're trying to get higher scores, because again, it does find more ships and you're kind of taking more risky play if you're doing score running. So how about now, Badger, though? Come on, are we good? Is that enough? Is that enough about the score stuff? Emperor Badger likes to do score running in FTL, so just doing a little shout out for them. So long range scanners, I'm gonna put here, because if you don't have shields, which the cell ships start with, you do need it. Like, it is, in that particular situation, has immeasurable value to keep you alive. But in a lot of other situations, I don't buy it. It should come to no surprise for people of my channel. Mantis Pheromones. Here they are. So Mantis Pheromones increase your crew's movement speed, even when on the enemy ship, by 25%. Yeah, who cares? The Mantis, all the Mantis ships start with it. You can also get it as part of the Mantis Cruiser Unlock quest. But if your ship already has Mantis, which have innate 1.5 times movement speed, the 0.25 isn't going to make that much of a difference. I think it used to be a kind of a deal with Mantis B and some of the repair strategies to fix O2, and it could still have some relevance, but there's been some update and things have changed. And boy, there's a lot of talk about how crews move around on ships going on right now. I'm just kind of waiting for people to filter through, but there's like the frame rate of the game, the room layouts, there's lots of little things that can potentially impact your crew getting to where they need to get. And generally speaking, it like there are most situations it like the few pixels aren't going to, or the few frames aren't going to matter. But I think it's too limited, it's too hard to really predict in that kind of thing, and you'd really be better like if you just go to a store and then you sell it for $25. And on Mantis B, like I said, which is the one where it used to be like the way with like it in the level 2 med bay, you could be able to repair your O2 if it went down. There's a lot of other strategies you can employ. You just sell it to get your engines online, because some fights are really spooky on Mantis B anyways, and just being able to run is going to probably be more likely to be helpful than the augment is going to be. So Mantis Pheromones, we're gonna put life scanner, I guess. Is it better that your crew move faster than drones? Sure. Okay. Next, Reconstructive Teleporter. Am I ever blocking these things? No, good. All right, Reconstructive Teleporter. So this thing costs 70 scrap, and what it does is it fully heals your crew whenever you teleport them off your ship or back to your ship. It's purchasable in stores. No ships start with it. Slug B is a ship that starts with a teleporter, but does not have a medical unit. It uses a heal bomb instead. So barring alternatives, like you go to a store, you have $70, you already have your shields up to level 2, there's no medical unit, which it will be there if they sell systems, it has to. You then go the route of Reconstructive Teleporter. Just a fun little fact kind of thing. If you opt to like try to go with a non-medical system on your Slug B, it really screws up stores and how they spawn systems. And occasionally like stores will just spawn with only 2 systems instead of 3 if they are selling systems, which I find really annoying and can actually impact your ability to find things like cloaking and hacking. So I wouldn't recommend this as the preferred route with the slug ship, even though the idea of having cloaking, hacking, mind control, and teleporter all in one ship sounds fun. It's not particularly practical in my opinion. Yeah, so the other thing is like, okay, so your crew heal, but you're still gonna have to wait for your teleporter to cool down, and you could probably just in most ship layouts run your crew to the medical bay, heal them, run back, and not miss any time. So the real benefit is for clone bays, ships with clone bays, again, boarding ships predominantly, is, or it has to be boarding ship because that's the only way it works, with a clone bay, is that your crew would be able to maintain their skills, right? So every time you clone a crew, they lose a percentage of their skills. That's so ridiculously minor, particularly for boarders, this is like, it's a luxury to save time in a run that you've already won. Like, you're just like, all right, you know what? I got everything I need. And venting my crew takes just such a dumb amount of time, particularly if you have Crystal Crew and they take like the Habdo 2 thing. And you're just like, oh, geez. You could just be like, all right, I'm just going to buy this. And that way I just teleport them and they're fully healed and I don't have to waste my time in game for that. But that's it. It's at best a super luxury only for a very specific thing that saves time. I don't know. Better than battery charger, AG Medbot Dispersal. Whatever. Next up, Repair Arm. $50. 50 scrap gets you a repair arm, and every time you get scrap via a reward, so not for selling something to a store, your reward is reduced by 15% and 2 hull points are restored. In terms of cost-benefit analysis, repair arm is terrible. This is terrible. You always want to be in control of your scrap to make those decisions. You can get repairs at stores. Occasionally they're free, but you want the choice. You don't want this augment eating into your scrap gains, particularly early on, and limiting your ability to buy like weapons and systems that are going to help you win your runs. So you're not going to buy it for the most part, ever, particularly not early on, and you're honestly going to want to sell it as soon as you possibly can. So again, it's not interfering with your scrap. It is worth noting, though, if you do have full hull, it doesn't proc, it doesn't activate, so you're not losing your 15% scrap there. However, if you are Sector 7 into Sector 8, and you do not have the cloaking hacking set up, you are not completely, totally, 100% safe, it might be worth picking up. The 2 repairs could potentially have more value than what the 50 scrap can get you, right? Like being able to heal 4 hull between phases 1 and phase 2 could be the difference in saving a run, particularly, like I said, jumping to the flagship. So ships like Mantis B, Lanny B, where, like I said, you can't get the double setup of cloaking and hacking, it could be worth considering to try and mitigate potential damage losses on getting to the flagship or during the flagship fight that you would pick this object up. That's really pushing it. But it actually, so like, it's like here, maybe. Like, I think that's too niche, but I think most of the time you want to avoid it and you really need to sell it because it is potentially just detrimental. But like I said, it kind of, like I said, fits in this thing where it's like, well, this isn't inherently bad, but it's limited where you can actually apply it. You need to have teleporter. It's also 70 scrap, which is like a lot of money. So it kind of just goes down to that category. Reverse ion field. Reverse ion field. So what reverse ion field does is it costs 45 scrap, and it has a 50% chance to ignore ion damage from weapons, an ion intruder, or a pulsar. It doesn't impact system cooldowns, because system cooldowns are kind of they function similarly to ions, but it's not like 50% chance your hacking doesn't go on cooldown. Boy, that would be fun. This benefit actually also applies to Zoltan Shields, and so I get to point out the fact that if you have a Zoltan Shield up, but not your shields, right? Because you don't need them, but you have this augment, an ion will hit your Zoltan Shield, and if you get the proc, then it actually keeps going. It ignores the Zoltan Shield and it can hit one of your systems. Ask Farb about that story. He loves telling about it. This augment is stackable, so that means if you have 2 of them, you are 100% immune to all ions. Oh, you're right. And if you have 3 3 reverse ion fields on your ship. It means when you get hit by an ion, you actually gain Reactor. It's a permanent upgrade to your ship. I might have made that last part up. So generally speaking, flashing shields and watching Mike Hopley's video on how to deal with pulsars, that's Mikehopley, pulsars, watching his video on pulsars are going to give you the micro capabilities of dealing with like ion damage on your own. So because you have mechanically the tools available to deal with most ions, intruders can be a problem. That's totally fair. So it kind of helps deal with those particular nuisances. Where did I put this on the list? Is it not on the list? Oh, I guess I put it here still. Like, I wouldn't inherently buy it, but it's not bad for you. There are some really, again, even with all the manipulation in pulsars, it can be a little bit helpful. You know what? I'm actually going to put it at the top because all ships can potentially deal with ions. You know, maybe negating an ion intruder is going to be beneficial in some way. You take less damage instead of fight. It's something I can't recall ever purchasing, that I tend to sell in the first 5-6 sectors unless I'm already one. Then, you know, maybe I hold on to it, like seeing where its true value is. But it does give you those like, aha, like when you get out of like a really bad ion, like that feels good. But yeah, I'm like never buying it. Next up, rock plating. We're almost done. Rock plating. So rock plating is an augment. Costs $80, but you can never buy it. And what it does is provides a 50% chance that hull damage will be ignored, though any system damage will occur. So like if a beam swipes through every room, every single proc of damage, there's a 50% chance that you don't take any of it. It starts on all rock ships, or you can get it from the rock cruiser unlock quest. Again, fun fact, because we love our fun facts. If an attack breaches like 100% of the time, such as an ASB, the rock plating will not proc. So anything with 100% breach chance means that it cannot save the whole damage. 99% of the time you're going to sell this thing. You're just going to sell the thing because it's $40 when you sell it into a store, and that really gets you closer to getting your shields online or getting a weapon online or getting hacking online. All things which are better than 50% of the time you're not going to take hull damage. But if you already have 2 shields online, the store that you go to is garbage, then there's value to hold on to it to maybe save a few hull points. Maybe. And there's actually like 3 blue options with rock hull plating. So you you can go like explore through the asteroid fields, which is a pretty common enough event. And I'm gonna be like, no, actually it's an uncommon event. So that you can like get good things out of that. But again, you're gonna sell it. You're just going to sell it. People are going to be like so upset about this. You're just going to sell it and get the money. Like 40 scrap, so much scrap. Wow. Next up, scrap recovery arm. Let's go. Good old scrap. I should just put it up. Okay, we know we're going to switch it up. We're going to put it in S tier. That's great. This is what we're going to get the thumbnail for. So it costs $50, and anytime you gain scrap outside of selling to a store, you get 10% more scrap rounded down. So basically, every 10 scrap you get 1 extra scrap. Now, according to the wiki, and I have no reason to doubt it, if you have multiple scrap recovery arms, it adds the total scrap up before doing the rounding down. So apparently, if you have 2 scrap recovery arms and you have a 15 scrap reward, you actually get 3 scrap out of it instead of 2. Exciting. Also, the scrap gained from this augment has no impact on score. Okay, so clearly at some point, Badger got editing permission on this document, which I haven't even told him about, to put these little information bits in here. Sorry about that. At no time ever should you buy this augment. Never, never, never buy it. It is 50 scrap. That's ridiculous. The chances of it, the amount of scrap you need to gain for it to pay for itself is simply not worth it, ever. Buy a weapon, sit on the scrap. Sitting on your scrap is better so that you have the ability to use it immediately. I have tried. I had 2 runs, Sector 4, well-established ships, and I was like, I know there's no other stores left in the sector, so I bought it, and at the very next store in Sector 5, I immediately sold it because there was something else that I wanted. So don't buy it. If you get it for free, and there's just absolutely nothing in the store, sure, hold on to it. You know, I mean, it's a little bit of free money. That's all. But if you had like plans on like, I need to get the shields online, so go ahead, sell it, and then, you know, you're just a little bit extra. You're a little bit short on like getting 3rd shield. Like it's like $60. So sell it for 25 to get closer because you know, try and find security as fast as you can. But yeah, this is absolutely never buy, but you kind of could hold on to it, and that would have a benefit for all the ships in those bit of scenarios. So we're going to kind of put it with like distraction buoys. I think that's fair. It essentially provides kind of like the same thing. I guess if you're score running, it would go like this. Next up, Shield Charge Booster. Shield Charge Booster. This is 45 scrap, and it is a 15% increase in your shield's recharge rate that stacks additively with itself, so you get multiples of these, and multiplicatively with your crew. And that was definitely directly pulled almost word for word from the wiki. Again, thanks to Outrider, Mike, and Zenek for all the information that you provide there. So if you have nothing on shield, like if you have no crew on shields, buy a crew. Like it's going to be better. Then, wait, where I got lost in my notes. All right, yeah. Generally going to put your crew back better. Hacking weapons and cloaking are going to shut down most enemy ships, and that's kind of like the thing I put together. You may notice that I try to push for that particular build, which is going to negate most of the enemy offense. But it still leaves you potentially vulnerable to certain like drone setups. Drones can be kind of annoying, particularly in phase 2 of the flagship fight. And if you don't have cloaking, then Shield Charge Booster could be actually a pretty nice addition to your ship to try and get through that spookiness. Particularly if you don't have like a quick kill against the enemy. Like if you don't have cloaking, then you should have shields 4. If you don't have shields 4, you have like 3 shields, no cloaking. I'm sorry, that was a really disgusting run that you just had to deal with. But I could see this augment helping with you. Shield better, shield bubbles better. I would even argue that a buffer in your shield system is going to be better so you could just take the hit to your shields and they still function. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in the lack of system thing. I think it's stronger again if you don't have cloaking, so it's kind of why it gets there. It's always going to be beneficial against drones. A few times maybe like I'd say like dealing with the Vulcan, not really, because I think it still spools too fast, but then with the dodges you can have some recovery. But yeah, so like outside of cloaking, pretty solid value. I still value drone recovery arm more so for drone ships than getting this for a ship that doesn't have cloaking. And again, you could go ahead and argue that this is here, because like I said, if you don't have shields, then you need this. Slug Repair Gel. Slug Repair Gel. So Slug Repair Gel costs 60. Doesn't really cost 60 because it's found on all starting slug ships, and it's only gained through the Slug Cruiser event. It repairs all breaches at about 75% human speed. So the human speed of repairing a breach, this is like 75% of that, and humans are generally like everything that is kind of based on them. So like double repair speed for NGs is double a human repair speed. Once you've completed the slug quest, if you wanted to complete the slug quest, there's a lot of people who haven't. You never, ever, ever are going to see this again outside of slug ships that start with it, because it involves taking surrenders, and it's just like you have to take surrenders from slug ships. There's not a specific event. It's not like, oh, this text means that this is the event. You don't know. So because it would involve taking multiple surrenders, super isn't worthwhile. You'll never, never, ever, ever get this again after you decide to do the quest because you're a completionist. Like this guy. And yeah, it sells for 30 scrap. So, you know, on all those slug ships, if you don't have shields, go ahead, sell it, get that 30 scrap. The only exception I could really put to this is if your Slug B, you already got your shields to, like you got your shields to online, okay? And you don't want to have your crew repair breaches, right? Like you don't want to repair breaches because you also don't have a medical unit. So really specific. You got 2 shields, you get to a store, the store doesn't have like hacking or weapons or a medical unit, then I could see having to hold on to this. But yeah, that's super, super niche. Down here you go. Down here you go. Stealth weapons. Stealth weapons. So these cost 50 scrap, and what it does is it prevents the firing of non-B weapons from reducing your cloaked timing. So when you activate cloak, at level 1 it's 5 seconds, 2, 10, and 3 it's 15 seconds. Any firing of any weapons that are not specifically beam weapons will reduce your time that you're cloaked by a certain percentage, okay? So I try to get cloaking every run. It's just right behind hacking is something I get. Can't always have it with like Mantis B, Fed C, Lanius B. I think I forgot about Fed C earlier when I was talking about like getting the systems of both hacking and cloaking up at the same time. It will have a really strong benefit once you get to level 2, level 3 cloaking. Assuming you're kind of going weapons build. There have been for a long time within FTL that you really only need cloaking level 1. That's it, that's all. You might get a buffer point so it doesn't take damage, but you would only get level 1 cloaking, and because it was going to time perfectly with like the surges. It doesn't perfectly time with the drone surge. It doesn't. It does against the lasers themselves. But now, a lot, I would say most elite players, what they do is they try to push for a bare minimum of cloaking 2, hacking 2 as soon as possible to try and lock out enemy weapons. And it could be incredibly beneficial to continuously just shoot your weapons while you're cloaked so you're not messing up that system, because you're using cloaking and hacking to offset the cooldown times of the other system. That's kind of how the strategy works. Vulcan and Ion builds are also going to be like constantly shooting, so it's going to be able to benefit from that. The knock against it was if you're stucking with level 1 and you wanted to like be able to fire weapons to cancel out of cloaking as fast as you can to kind of resync, there is a little bit of value to that. I'm not going to say there's no value to it, but compared to the cloaking and hacking of weapons, just making so many fights safe, I don't think it warrants it as a strategy consideration. It's not nearly as good, comparatively so, and really that's coming down to like one fight where it may work. And again, I think against the flagship you can do the strategy of like dropping your shields and doing a level 3 cloaking, and it's going to generally clear the first missile launch and the first surge in phase 3. Not 100%, but pretty high percentage of the time. So with that, like I said, if you have cloaking, which you should have cloaking, stealth weapons are really good. And so it's going to be on most of your ships. And again, you're going to want that at least the 2 and 2 minimum to try and keep yourself safe from most of the fights. So yeah, there you go. You get to be in B tier. Titanium system casing. It costs 80 scrap, and so this augment, there's a 15% chance of your ship essentially ignoring system damage. So you still take the hull damage. So the heavy laser hits you in your weapons, there's a 50% chance your weapons are fine. I think you could still start a fire, and you'll still take 2 hull damage, but your weapons will still, in fact, be online. This is the starting augment for the Stealth A, and it should be on the Stealth B. Like, it should be on the Stealth B more than it should be on the Stealth A. I get it for quests. All the quests have an augment, so it has to be on the Stealth A, but seriously, it should be on the Stealth B. Like, give the Stealth B a little, like, the chance that your weapons 15% of the time don't go down, and you can sell it for 40 scrap to try and get to Cloaking 3. Man, why? Anyways, I'm sure there's some niche situation where, like, oh, you don't sell it in a store because your weapons are going to get a hit. Like I said, Stealth A, you're going to sell it as soon as possible to get a new weapon, buy shields, buy hacking, get one of those things online. Maybe even, like, where I would think Cloaking 2 would actually be, like, safer, which isn't generally an early purchase you would go with, but, like, you could just sell it and buy Cloaking 2 along with your weapon buffer that you already have, because that's the thing you upgrade first. Like, you're just selling this. If you get it from the event, you're also selling it. And again, really should be on the Stealth B. I don't think Subset's going to change it, but they could. They should. Anyways, titanium system casing. Did I put it in titanium system casing? Kind of goes above lifeform scanner, I guess. Boop. All right. Weapon pre-igniter. Weapon pre-igniter costs 120 scrap. Weapons powered from the previous jump are fully powered. So you power your weapons. They don't have to be full power. They just have to have power in them. You jump, and the game remembers that, and the game translates that into those weapons being powered at the next jump. Okay. Now, this doesn't have an impact on the artillery system, so your fed ships, they don't get a benefit from that. For artillery, your weapons still do. And for charged weapons, it only does 1 pip. Okay. Also, chain weapons, it only goes up level 1. Doesn't, like, spool them to max like on a Vulcan or something. There is a way around this, though, the charged weapon element. If you charge a charged weapon to full before you jump, hit pause. You can probably do this in no pause as well. Depower that weapon and then jump to the next beacon, pause again, then it will actually remember the amount of power that it had in it. So it essentially will, but it'll lose a little bit because it won't have been powered during the jump. Time does pass. So this means that your weapon will have all but 1 charge and be partially charged for its final shot, for its final projectile. This can be expanded upon for what's known as the Sven maneuver. Again, this is an exploit. The Sven maneuver, which actually allows you to power more weapons than your weapon system could handle, doing the same thing. So, for example, out of the blue, let's say you have, I don't know, 3 flak 2s and a halberd beam. Yeah, you could charge the flak and the halberd beam to full, hit pause, depower those 2, and then power your other 2 remaining flak 2s. Jump, hit pause again, unpause, fire your flaks. And flaks are really good because they fire all their projectiles at the same time. So it's just, and they're gone. So where other weapons, they have to keep firing their projectiles if they're multi-projectile weapons. And as that time goes on, your other 2 non-powered weapons are draining. Their charge is draining. So you can fire those 2 flak, swap over to the flak and halberd beam that you haven't fired yet, and then very quickly in succession be able to charge and fire those as well. It's a fun little thing you can just do. This is the 3rd most expensive purchase in the game at 120 scrap. Is it, just under shields at 125 and cloaking at 150? Is it system worthy, like in terms of cost? Yes. Its ability to instantly power incredibly slow weapons, giving you an extra volley to try and crack Zoltan Shields quickly, and the ability to sneak in 2 volleys before an enemy is able to cloak it second time is very strong. you won't always be able to afford 120 scrap. It's still not better than cloaking. It's still not better than hacking. It's still not better than shields. And, you know, certain weapons are going to be like far more valuable in taking out the enemy ships or getting those weapons online than buying this system. But it's really good when it does its thing, and it does its thing. Like I said, the ability to, in some of the nastier fights, if you somehow don't have cloaking and hacking, which, hey, it happens. Like I said, I wouldn't buy it like in a Sector 3, Sector 4, because you're still kind of holding out for cloaking, hacking, and weapons. I'm saying cloaking, hacking, and weapons quite a bit because they're kind of important. You really can't justify picking it up then. But, like, if you get it for free, there's still potential value. And there's still some times where I would sell it just for 60 scrap, which is a ludicrous amount of money. But this is like universally good. Yeah, there's some boarding ships that aren't going to go super weapons. You have Zoltan Shield bypass, so it doesn't super matter as much. So then you like really quote unquote can't justify it. But like I said, it makes your guns shoot faster. It's pretty good. Next up, Zoltan Shield. Zoltan Shield. Technically it costs $80, but it doesn't really cost $80 because you can't buy it. So there's a lot. Zoltan Shield, whenever you jump to a beacon, you get 5 green pips that shows up below your shield. Okay, so we're just going to call these Zoltan Shield health bars or green pips. It depends. I was writing this intermittently and changing my terminology as I went through. Okay. So for each pip, that Zoltan bubble, that Zoltan shield is able to take a damage, and instead of the damage being dealt to your ship, it absorbs it completely. So none of your systems are hit, your hull is not hit. Hull weapons, if they target empty rooms, still just do their baseline damage. So if this also is applicable to the enemy ships as well, right? Like their Zoltan shield bubble, for the most part, operates the same way. The only exception being the flagship in Phase 3, their Zoltan shield has 12 pips instead of 5. So as I said, hull weapons don't do 2 damage even if you're going through empty rooms. And ions do deal 2 times their base damage to Zoltan shields. Beams do 2 times their base damage. So halberd beam does 4, glaive can do 6, and so there's some really cool swipes where you can glaive beam, and just like the tail end of the glaive beam will still potentially deal damage. So if like Stealth B against Zoltan shielded ships in Sector 1, there are swipes where you're still able to hit their weapons for 2 damage. Just making sure, like I said, it's right at like the tail end. There's more. Fire beams and anti-bio beams actually do deal damage to the Zoltan shield, even though they don't technically do damage. They do 2 damage per swipe. Fire bombs don't deal any damage to Zoltan shields. They do none. What else? If a single attack would do more damage than what is left on your Zoltan shield when it's not a beam, as we explained how beams can still potentially, like, if they can pierce the level of shields available, they can still deal damage. It will, so anyways, excess damage is just absorbed, okay? So if you have 1 pip left, hull missile comes in, or breach missile comes in, which deals, I think, 4. Breach missile hits that, you lose the pip, no damage, no breaches, okay? What else? Oh yeah, still more talking about what it does. While you have at least 1 Zoltan pip, enemies cannot hack your ship. You cannot be targeted by a hack. You cannot be targeted by mind control, nor can enemies teleport crew over to your ship or pull them away from your ship. Event boarders always have Zoltan shield bypass. You know, when you jump and they're like, there's some crew on board your ship or whatever. Those events always happen, but boarders via a teleporter cannot board or leave your ship as long as you have 1. This also applies, I get to the shield drone that there's a modified version that starts on Stealth C. So like if they board onto your ship and then one of those pips comes up, if that pip is still there, they cannot leave. They cannot mind control you. If a hack is already on your ship, that can still be activated. What else? Oh yeah, in pulsars though, you take it's 3 ion damage. So 3 ion damage is dealt to your Zoltan shield as long as there's 1 pip up and none of your other systems are hit. So it's not 2 and 2 like normally. It's like your shields are up, it hits your shields in a random system or just 2 random systems. It hits the Zoltan Shield, that's it, nothing else happens. The only real downside to the Zoltan Shield, now that we're through all the things that it does, or most of them, I might have forgot some, is that enemy hacks are delayed. This is particularly noticeable against the flagship, but also potentially disruptors. And the reason this is potentially a problem is like in those fights, you can, like in a disruptor, you can be like surprised hack. Like you're like, oh, this fight looks pretty safe, I'm gonna hack this thing and go for a crew kill. Then that delayed hack comes in and like gets your weapons or gets your shield system, and suddenly that safe fight is not safe anymore. Okay, so you have to be cognizant of that being a possibility against hacking. Against the flagship, the concern is the delayed hack could target your weapons. And the flagship already has a level 2 cloak in phase 1. So what could happen is the fight progresses, your Zoltan Shield drops, and now the hack hits your weapons. So it hacks your weapons down, it releases them, and now its cloak is ready. So instead of those things being synced up, so a weapon hack isn't as detrimental, it is now massively detrimental. So that is essentially the only downside. I guess the other one would be is you could say, like, again, because enemies can't leave, you couldn't, like, if you got boarded by a bunch of Mantis and the enemy ship has a teleporter, you couldn't hack their teleporter and get them off your ship. They would still stick around. Other than that, though, wow, like it is an amazing augment that provides you with a continuous defensive, option, a defensive element every single fight. Every single fight, the enemy has to get through your Zoltan Shield before you're hurt. This can buy you a significant amount of time. This provides you with a significant amount of safety. Zoltan ships, like the Zoltan Shield makes it so, like if you have a shield bubble and a Zoltan Shield, you're good through the first 2 sectors. Like you don't really have to push for second shield. This kind of assumes that you at least got a buffer point in Zoltan A, like that's your first upgrade. I also do buffer point in weapon. I didn't say buffer points in where. Weapon buffer points in the Zoltan A and Zoltan C. There's some debate whether you should get it in the C or just wait to get out stuff. I say get it for what it's worth. But yeah, getting, like I said, a weapon buffer in Zoltan A and Zoltan C, and you're done with those ships in terms of like those investments. The Zoltan Shield and the 1 shield bubble, you're going to generally be safe. You want 2 shields, though, into Sector 3, because there can be double drones and things get spooky. Anyways, there's like I said, there's a lot to get through. It's really amazing what it can do. It provides you with an extra level of security. However, you can still sell it for 40 scrap. If there are cloaking or hacking and you already kind of have the other system on board your ship, those are better. They're better than the Zoltan Shield, and it is worth considering to sell the Zoltan Shield to get those online. I've done it twice. There might have been some other opportunities I could have considered it. There was like another time I considered it, but the store didn't have anything to warrant the selling of it. So, like I said, it's a consideration. It's a thought that you can have that might be worth exploring. Because those, like I said, cloaking and hacking is just like, it's a one run. So, Zoltan Shield, really good at preventing you from dying, but it doesn't hurt any enemy ships at all. So if you have something that is essentially the actual win, like these are the things that are going to get you the win, then you should just win. But yeah, you get usually good. Universally good. Not usually good, universally good. Even more than Pre-Igniter. Though, you're really only going to get on Zoltan ships because you don't want to go to Zoltan sectors. Don't go to Zoltan sectors. Unless it's like Abandoned 6, Abandoned 7. Then maybe go to Zoltan sectors. But generally, you don't. Do not risk your ship against Zoltan sectors on the hope of getting this event. You have to get the event, and then you have to be able to get to the other event because it's a 2-part event, and then it's a 50-50. And in that same time, you're in a Zoltan sector with the bombers event and the asteroids, which is pretty disgusting, and then border police. Not worth. And finally, Zoltan Shield bypass. It should be no surprise where this thing is going to end up. It costs 55 scrap, and what it does is it allows teleporter, mind control, and bombs, not missiles, to effectively ignore enemy Zoltan shields. Okay, so it's a very powerful augment, obviously, for boarding strategies, allowing the immediate deployment of your crew through a Zoltan shield. It's great, but it doesn't get hacking through, and that is spooky. That's very spooky. Can I? Whatever. Shoot. Going in again, hacking is a real boon for a lot of boarding strategies because you're going to hack their weapons and slow them down, or maybe you're going to set up a hack so they just can't get to their med bay and you just DPS them down very quickly. But you have to be cognizant that it doesn't just automatically get hacking through. Okay, just be aware that that's a thing, and you still should keep some weapons online for taking down Zoltan Shield so your hacking can get through, or just giving you some flexibility. There's maybe some like potential like bad hacks that can get really disgusting. It's not like, well, I got Zoltan Shield, I just won, because Zoltan Shield and Teleporter just get me there. And maybe they hack your Teleporter, maybe they hack your shields, and you don't have the time. So just be, like I said, cognizant of Zoltan Shield bypass is not a guaranteed win on a boarding ship. It is still an incredibly powerful tool for boarding ships. Again, I wouldn't take a weapon, or I wouldn't take it over a weapon. Get a weapon instead. I don't know, maybe like a repair burst. I guess I wouldn't. Unless I'm Mantis B and don't got crew. Again, lots of things to always think about in FTL. But it does, in fact, if you get to the flagship and you're able to crew kill in phase 1 with your hacking, phase 2 you don't need the hacking because you can kind of just board and pick them apart. Though they do have mind control, which could be a bit of a pain. But yeah, so that clearly should, as I go into system, if you have hacking, you want to get your Zoltan Shield bypass. And that's the list. Like I said, their individual ranks aren't the most important element. It's the why you should get them, why you should not get them, that we just went over in the past about hour 40, yeah, about 100 minutes. Good. And that's it. That's all. There's probably more, but I think that's a pretty solid foundation of at least where I consider these augments, ways to think about them when you're playing FTL, and good luck with your future endeavors in the game. And that's it for me. So thank you all for stopping by. Take care. Hope to see you again soon.